Welcome to another episode of Candid Moments with Candace. Today is what a beautiful day. So in 2018, I was privileged to win the Members Making a Difference Award for all my community work from Toastmasters International. And it was quite the experience. But what's interesting about that award, which is this one, the Members Making a Difference Award from Toastmasters International at the district level, was named after a man, a renowned Toastmaster in our district for his community work. He is an award-winning speaker and trainer, a champion, a warrior, and a newly published author. I am so pumped. Please help me welcome to the microphone, Mr. Neil Dunsmore. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Candace. Thank you so much for having me. This is always an exciting time to get to speak to you. You're such a wonderful interviewer, and I just love the guests you have on your calls.
Oh, thank you. So you've been one of my listeners?
I am. I like to follow you because, having done this walk, I've been interviewed by a lot of people, and I think I texted this to you.
Yeah.
There are great interviewers, and there are people who have an agenda and try to take over the interview. And you can always tell who they are when you start talking. And the ones that really are in it for their audience and want their audience to get the best from their guests, they have a different style. And you're one of those people. And I really appreciate being interviewed by you.
Well, my turn to cut you off. I'm just going to pause for a second. This is how I'd love to start our conversation. I know it's hard to just narrow it down to three, but what are three things today that you're grateful for?
Three things I'm grateful for?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing is my family, my wife, my children, my brothers, and my sister-in-laws and my brother-in-laws and my parents and my in-laws. That's my network. That's what keeps me grounded, and having them all in my life is so precious. And we lost my mother-in-law a few years back, and I think about her daily because she was such a powerful figure. So yeah, family is number one. And I think number two would be the friends that I've collected, because that's what my father tells me I am. You're a collector of friends, Neil. That's what you do. You could go out into the woods and you'll meet a new friend. And he was right, because on this walk, I met all kinds of new friends that I have now in my life. But on this walk, I learned how much I lean on those friends, how much they truly mean to me. And just the small acts of kindness they show you, just calling that seems to be at the most opportune time, or sending a text message to say, hey, was just thinking about you today. How are you? And that connectivity, and I think it's been driven home in COVID. And
yeah, you're right.
Having friends, having a lot of friends is a true blessing in my life, and I'm absolutely grateful for that.
Awesome.
And the other thing I would say I'm grateful for are the opportunities that seem to be coming my way lately. The opportunities to share my message around mental health, but my opportunities to have conversations and speak to people of diverse backgrounds, of different cultures and different religions, and just to share the common experiences we all have. That commonality, that's what makes us the human species. And I think having the opportunity to connect with those people, we all need that. I wish that for everybody in this world, because if you can connect with people who have different experiences, and even people whose cultures and beliefs are so far separated from yours, having those conversations, that's what unites us. That's the bridge over troubled waters. Speaking with each other.
Last night I was looking for a bracelet that I bought, and I bought it online, I think by Mel Robbins, and you choose the word that you wanted on your bracelet. So last year for 2020, before the pandemic, when I was still running my live show Mo Mondays, my word for the year was connect. But it's interesting how the word connect, I don't know where the bracelet is, I can't find it, but connect seems to be a theme for me this year as well, because I'm on this journey. But gratitude will always be my word. Like, I have it tattooed on my arm, and I always refer to my tattoo because that is like tattoo it. It's part of my heart. It's part of me. That's why I begin these conversations with gratitude. So today I'm grateful. I'm grateful that it's the first day of fall and that I have a warm jacket. And I spoke with mom on the phone this morning. I love that girl. Shout out to mama. You're my BFF.
She's a
And
special lady.
she certainly is. Without the support of my family, I wouldn't have been able to write my book, go after my big badass dreams. Yeah, my family, but even before my family, because my family can't, like, yes, my family first, but then I'm grateful for my brain. My brain takes me places that I would have never thought possible. Yeah, and I'm grateful that back in the day, I can't even tell you what year it was, but in Toastmasters in District 87 in Northern Ontario, I got to meet the Mr. Neil Dunsmore before he was a published author. Yeah, that's what I'm grateful for today.
And thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone and joining organizations like Toastmasters and getting to meet people, because you meet the greatest people when you step out of your comfort zone and you get out there in the world. You see how many really great people there are, particularly in this country. This country is filled with superheroes.
Yes,
But people don't get to meet them because they don't, they stay in their own home and they watch TV and they confine themselves to a restricted world. And
boring. I got rid of my TV. A friend of mine gave me a TV, stopped working. Another friend gave me a TV because they said, like, when I come and see you, I want to watch TV. And I was like, if you want to watch TV, go home. If you want to connect with me, you will sit on my couch and you will look me in the eye and you're going to have like a real soulful conversation. You know what I mean?
yep.
I don't know if I'm just in people's face with my love and gratitude and connection, but so be it, because that's me.
Well, that's the energy you bring to this world. And I appreciate that. And you know what it's like to almost lose that and to get it back. And when that happens to you, it refocuses you. And that's why you talk about being grateful, and it grounds you. Being grateful grounds you. And you are a joy and a light. And we almost lost you at one point. And now you're here again. And I love the way you share that.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. Gosh darn it. Okay, what was it? There was a few things going on, not too much last night. And I was like, wait a minute. I was waiting for my mom to call me back. Oh, surprise, right? So then I was like, wait, I was thinking about guests for my show and people to follow up on. Neil, I have not received an email from Neil. I wonder how his book is doing. So I called you right away.
Yep.
And because I wanted to know, you, Neil Dunsmore, were the first guest on my show. But when I started my podcast, I was just doing audio and our conversation was over the phone. So you could barely hear it. People were like, wow, he seems interesting, but I can't hear it. Yeah, you know what? It was kind of shit because that's when I first started. That was, that was earlier. But now I can see you. And
it's a learning curve. What you're doing is a learning curve.
God.
And that comes one. I was happy to be a part of it. And I know the technology, you're trying to figure it out. And now the technology, because of COVID, has jumped light years. It forced the whole world to jump into this technology. It forced the people who created this technology to create it quicker. And it's so much better now. So much better.
It is. Can I see the book cover, please?
Sure. So the book is called Reflections in the Ripple. And I'll explain that title to you, Reflections in the Ripple. When I decided to do this walk, and for your listeners who didn't hear the first podcast that you did with me, I walked from the township of Center Wellington here in Elora, Ontario, which is just a little bit north of Guelph. I walked from here to Ottawa, which was 500, and it turned out to be 531 kilometers. Maybe I'll explain how it became 531. To raise awareness for mental health and suicide, issues that my community was struggling with. And so when I first announced I was doing that, Cecilia Marie Roberts from the Canadian Mental Health Association, Wellington Waterloo, who was here to help us with a suicide situation, she heard that and she said, oh, Neil, this is fabulous. Taking the first step to raise awareness and start a conversation will create a ripple. That ripple will continue to ripple through your community, and all those ripples together will create a wave of change. And I never forgot that. And so this was a ripple that I created by taking the first step. And Reflections in the Ripple is about the people I met along the way who profoundly changed my very soul. Because those people had stories to share with me. I just took the first step and let the media tell people this is why I'm walking. And those people felt the need to reach out to me, share their stories. And then when I met people along the way, everybody had a story. And I just shared it. It's a collection of short stories. It's a collection of stories of the people I met and how wonderful they were. And that wave, those ripples have come together to create a wave of change in our community. And I am so thankful for that. And so that's why it's called Reflections in the Ripple.
I love it. When was the walk?
The walk happened a year ago.
I knew it.
And so it was September 5th, 2020 was the day I left, which was Labor Day 2020. And my plan all along was to leave on Labor Day because I wanted to arrive in Ottawa on September 27th. And the reason for that is every year in September in Ottawa, there is a memorial service honoring peace officers who have fallen in service to this great nation.
Peace officers?
Peace officers. So that would be police officers, firemen, corrections officers, hopefully have an ambulance attendants. They're all peace officers under a general heading in the Constitution. And I'm a former peace officer. But the reason that it called me to go to the Peace Officers Memorial was we lost three police officers in this community. They didn't all, I don't think any of them were, no, sorry, one did. So there was one that was actually a part of our local force. The others were officers who lived in our community but worked for other forces. And they died by suicide. And they died by suicide because we call upon our first responders from all stripes, corrections officers, police officers, ambulance, and firemen, to go into the most horrific situations and just deal with it. They see things the average citizen doesn't do. And that creates stress in their life. It creates PTSD, and that PTSD leads to mental health issues. And I feel it contributed to their death by suicide. We asked them to do it. They did their job. That's an on-the-job injury. And just so you know, Candace, the Workers' Compensation Board has ruled that PTSD is an on-the-job injury for first responders. Ergo, it should be covered. And the governments are fighting that. And so that was one of the sub-reasons that I did this. And I firmly believe that those peace officers who die by suicide deserve to have their names on that wall of honor in Ottawa. And I sent the Prime Minister at the time, who is now our Prime Minister still after the election the other night. And I sent him an email and I said, I want to talk to you. And, you know, he's a busy man. There's this little thing called COVID going on. So he never came down to talk to me, but other people did. And we're going to continue to fight until peace officers who have died by suicide have their name on that wall.
The wall is situated
in Ottawa. It's located on Parliament Hill. Right now it's in behind the Parliament buildings because they've got it stretched out for COVID. And so you walk in behind. And when I stopped there and I read the names, there are 6 names there that are of peace officers that I know that died on the job. But I couldn't help but be haunted by the names that were missing. And I only know of 3 of them personally, but I am sure there are hundreds across our great nation.
It's interesting that you're telling me this now about the officers, because when we spoke early this year, or no, you were my first one. So we recorded last year. Yeah. So last fall, you told me the whole story about walking to Ottawa for suicide prevention and mental health. But it was called the Cody
Shepherd Project.
Yes.
So Cody Shepherd, just to let your listeners know, in my community, we had an elevated level of suicide. but we had an elevated level of suicide in younger people. And that's what really called me to action, because I was concerned about that. And when I ran for local office, I'm a township councillor. And when I ran for council, I became aware of that situation. And I met a young lady named Darcy Jemmett. She was Cody Shepherd's mother. And I tell you, the first time I met her, I could see the pain in her eyes. And she shared with me the story of Cody. And Cody was a local athlete, a well-respected and well-loved kid with a great sense of humor. He was an OFSA champion wrestler for Center Wellington District High School, but he also represented Canada in the Pan Am Games. He had the world at his feet. Young man, well-liked, great athlete, and yet he fought demons. And he fought those demons alone. And he didn't talk to anybody. And one day he died by suicide. And that just crushed his mom and dad and his family and his friends. And that's the legacy of suicide in this world. It gets carried. The pain doesn't end. It gets carried by those of us who are left behind. And after meeting Darcy and understanding that there was a problem in this community, I was compelled to try and do something. And I spoke to the Minister of Health, and I know she's busy, and I know they have a lot on their plate, and I know we're a small community. And one day she said to me, I sympathize. I am so sorry with what's going on in your community. And I recall saying, I don't want your sympathy. I want your empathy. Because the difference between sympathy and empathy is empathy. You put yourself in my shoes and you wonder how we feel here in this community. And those feelings of empathy call you to action. And that's what I want. Action, not sympathy. People can feel sorry for other people all day long. It doesn't help. Empathizing with what they're going through, that's a call to action. That forces you to take action. And so I started the walk to get people to hear the stories, to listen. I had 3 goals when I was out there. One I've already explained to you is that I wanted to make sure that the peace officers who died from PTSD related suicide get their name on that wall. The other one was I wanted to start a conversation. I wanted to start a conversation around mental health and suicide. I wanted to erase the stigma of mental health. If I broke my arm, all my friends would run over and sign my cast. But if I tell them I'm suffering with anxiety or depression and I have thoughts of suicide, crickets. You can hear the crickets. They run in the other direction because there is this stigma that somehow if you have those thoughts and you're struggling with those issues, you are broken. You are not broken. It is a sickness. It is a disease like everything else. And we need to treat it like that. And instead of running away from people, we need to run to them. And what stops us from doing that is fear. We don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. And I talk about that several times in the book where people say, I thought they were suicidal, but I didn't ask. I didn't want to put the thought in their head. Ask them. Because you can't put the thought of suicide in their head. It's either there or it's not. You won't put it in their head, but asking them. And when they say, yeah, I am, I think I'm suicidal. I think I'm going to end my life today. Then you can take action. And then people say, what do? I don't know what to do. Well, first, forearm yourself. Find the crisis numbers in your area. And if they really tell you, I'm thinking of suicide today, tell them, you know what, I'm going to get you help and call 911. But if you have the crisis lines, you can sit with them and say, here, let's call this line together. Because when people know there's people here who care enough about them to do that, that makes them understand that they're attached to something more, something bigger than themselves in this world. Your friends want you here. Your happiness is worth fighting for. And people don't do that because they're afraid that they'll make a mistake. They'll say the wrong thing. It's not your job to fix them. It's too difficult. It's your job to know who to send them to and help them get there. If your friend was hungry and starving, you would take them to a restaurant or you would take them to a grocery store and you would buy them food. Well, take them to a counselor, take them to a hotline, help them with the call so that professionals can help them. You don't have to do this yourself. And the last thing I wanted to do was raise funds. And I was blessed that so many of my friends And so many people in my community jumped on board. And, we started this with a little, you talked about your big, hairy, audacious goal, your BHAG of writing a book. Well, my BHAG was, when I started this, was to raise about $10,000. And then when I started, I thought, wow, that's not enough. So we upped it to 20 and tried to push people. And in the end, we raised over $27,000
For the mental health.
for mental health initiatives in our community. And we gave it to a place called The Grove, which is a youth-centered mental health organization here in Center Wellington. They're actually all over Wellington County. There's 7 groves across Wellington County, and they focus on the youth. They talk to teenagers about eating disorders, about anxiety, about depression, about the struggles that youth have. And they're here to help, and they start those conversations, and they do so much good work for youth. So we managed to support them. And then we managed, because of the PTSD issue and the peace officers issue that I was trying to raise awareness for at the same time, we have a group here in town called Compass, and they provide mental health support for families. They are really big in the LGBTQ2S world, and they help local people with that, but they help set up for us a PTSD program. So if somebody comes through a traumatic incident, we have a group counseling program now here for PTSD, and our funds helped start that. And I'm so grateful that they're here. And then we also gave money to the Big Brothers Big Sisters, who run the hub where all these organizations are created. We're a small town. Now imagine, we have a hub run by the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Center Wellington that puts the Grove there and puts Compass there. And then does all their other programs as well. So now kids and families in this community can say, okay, we're struggling with this. Where do we go? Well, go
How is
beach.
that? Who funds the Big Brothers Big Sisters?
Big Brothers Big Sisters has a resort, a plethora of funding. And I shouldn't say plethora, because they're always looking for money. Big Brothers Big Sisters across the country are not-for-profits that rely on philanthropy and donors. And here in our community, we have a lot of people who donate to Big Brothers Big Sisters. They have fundraisers. I'm their guest speaker on October 6th this year at their AGM, and I'll be encouraging people to give to them. And they are the anchor tenant in these in our, they call it the Beehive, where the Grove and the Compass are located. They keep the lights on, and they connect so many kids that need Big Brothers and Big Sisters here. They're such a wonderful organization, and they're constantly fundraising. I don't know if they get any government funding or not, but here in my community, another thing I'm grateful for, Candace, is that the people here give openly, and they proved that on my walk. And Big Brothers Big Sisters would be the first ones to tell you that they're really, really happy with our community, and they rely on their generosity.
Wow. You, sir, are creating such a legacy. Like, I know this is all not about you. It's about your
none
journey.
of it is about me. I have a family member who struggles with mental health issues, and that's why I did this walk, because I know was a problem in our community, and I know families keep it a secret. My family doesn't talk about it, and I want to establish that conversation. And I've seen this issue from the family side, and I've seen it as, when I was in corrections, I was a crisis negotiator. I was the guy when an inmate was suicidal, they called me. And I went in to try and generate that conversation and to keep that person alive.
And not de-escalate. That wasn't the word I was.
Actually, it is de-escalation at its core. You want to bring them down to a level where they're not thinking about that anymore, and you want to get them to a safe place mentally and physically. But it's about creating a connection and getting them to choose life.
And how many times, like, I don't want to ask if you were unsuccessful at that, but I want to know, like, were there many times in that position where you were successful? Yes,
there was, and I am, I guess, probably proud of this. If I was called and I got involved, I didn't lose anybody. And that's not that I did anything right or anything good. All I ever did was create a conversation and be compassionate and empathetic and get them to a place of safety. And I tell this, and people who are in the mental health facility field all the time, they do a wonderful job, and their job is much more difficult than what I had to do, because they're trying to create a connection, sometimes over the phone, sometimes over Zoom, sometimes face to face. And that's, you have to be able to do that quickly, and that's a skill set. And I was blessed to kind of have that ability to connect with people. But when I was doing my job, they were already contained. They were already contained in a cell or in an institution. And you know,
But how
when
do
you
you
talk
get,
to somebody, I'm sorry,
no, sorry, keep going.
when you talk to somebody in an institution who is suicidal, you know, I always started with the congratulations, and that would always, they would like look at you like, I said, if you are depressed because you're in prison, congratulations, because that means there's a little tiny light of humanity left in you. The ones I worry about are the ones who can go to prison and it doesn't affect them. This is affecting you because you don't want to be
Interesting.
here. So you know there's something better. And I would always start my conversations that way. It caused them to pause and think, why are you sad? You're sad because you're not near your family, because you don't have your free. Okay, let's talk about that. What can we do about that? How are you and I together going to get you from A to B? And that right away created a conversation.
Okay, so what if they weren't affected by being in jail or prison?
Well, they wouldn't be suicidal if they were. What is it that's bringing them down? Most of them were depressed because they were in prison. Some of them were depressed over what they had done. And then there's a course over, okay, you know, conversation becomes, this is your punishment. You're here as punishment, not for punishment.
Right.
And so now let's see, where's the path? What can we do to get you from here? How can you make amends for what you've done? How can we fix that? And there are a lot of people. I used to catch a lot of grief because there was a lot of people. So why you even do it? Let them kill themselves. Well, that's easy to say when you're angry at what they did. But when you're face to face with another human being, your empathy and your human compassion says, you know, I have to help. We do not have a death penalty in this community.
Right.
In our country, we do not
No.
believe in the death penalty. There are people who do, and okay, that you're entitled to that opinion. I, for one, believe there's hope in all humanity and that we should be able to help people. And yes, sometimes you have to be punished and you have to go to prison, but that doesn't mean you have to go there to die.
Right.
Right. So
Speaking about empathy, I'm
sure,
gonna drop a bomb on you.
sure.
When you were working in the force, did you ever experience PTSD? And if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it.
No, yeah, I did. And I was
Okay.
fortunate enough to have some doctors in the facility. And as a crisis hostage negotiator, we worked closely with psychologists. And so I had a connection with them. And so, you know, you tell them, you see things that you shouldn't, that the normal side of humanity doesn't see. You see what some people are capable of doing to each other. You see how evil some people can be to each other. And the more you see of that, the more it piles on. I compare it often to a concussion. When you get a concussion and you get hit in the head and it creates a brain injury, and then another one hits there and it creates a brain injury in the same spot. When you get those concussions over and over, that's how you get long-term problems. And so PTSD and these situations, yeah, those situations pile on top of each other, right? And that's the same when you see these things over and over and over again. And I didn't realize, you know, I had these guys who were helping me, and I thought I had a handle on it. So I'll tell you a quick little story about probably the one man in the world I love the most, and that's my dad. And when I tendered my resignation and decided it was time to get out of corrections, and I took the buyout and I bought a little business here in Center Wellington called Fergus Collier World. And it was my dream to have a little business. And in the end, you know, just so you know, it didn't end well. I lost it in 2008, but that's okay. I took my shot, I made my mark, and I moved on from there. But shortly after I bought the business, about 6 months maybe, my father came up to see me and he said, let's go for lunch. Now, my father is never without my mother. They were both retired and my mother wasn't there. And I said, where's mom? And he said, oh, she's at home. I just want to come up and talk to you myself. Now, right away, my brain starts to go, what's wrong? Something's wrong with mom or something's wrong with dad, and he's going to lay this on me somewhere. So I said, Dad, what is it? What's going on? He said, Neil, shut up. We're going for lunch. So we went to Tim Hortons for lunch, and we're sitting in Tim Hortons, and he looked at me and his eyes got a bit teary. And I thought, oh God, my dad's got cancer, my mom's got cancer. And this is the fear we all live with, right? And my dad looks at me and he says, I just wanted to say, welcome home.
Oh my God.
And I looked at him and I said, Dad, I haven't been anywhere. What are you talking about? Oh, yes, you have. Yes, you have. I don't know who that young man that spent those 10 years working in that prison was, but it wasn't the kid I raised. But it is a breath of fresh air to have you back. Welcome back, son.
Oh.
And I just froze. I had no idea that my personality or my attitude or the way I interacted with people changed, because it happens so slowly.
Gradually.
One tiny little step at a time, until you look back and you're not the person you thought you were. And you don't know how you ended up here. And to have my father say that to me was like, whoa, it was a slap in the face. And so I've made a conscious effort from that day forward to check myself and to make sure that I am who I say I am, and focus on what I want to do for other people instead of myself. Because you build up a shell, and corrections officers and police officers and firefighters, they don't realize that. And ambulance attendants as well. You build up a thick outer skin, a tough shell. And listen, it is a self-defense mechanism.
Right.
Because if you don't, they will use it against you. And you do it subconsciously to protect yourself and to protect your family. So I had not, and he gave me some examples of some things I said to people, and he goes, that's not you. And when I heard my own words back, it was like, boom, and I should have known that, because as a conflict guy, I tell people that one of the things I like to teach people to do is to paraphrase in an argument. When somebody is yelling and screaming at you, be calm, take their words and paraphrase them back. You will hear them say, that's not what I said. Well, that's what I heard. Well, that's not what I meant. Oh, well, please tell me what you meant then, because that's what I heard, right?
Can you please elaborate?
Yes, paraphrasing is powerful, because you say things when you're angry. You say things when you're in the heat of the moment, and you didn't really mean them. And when your body language is added to that, and the demeanor that you're projecting is added to that, it creates an image that you never thought you were creating. And my father drove it home for me that day. And if you talk to people who were customers of mine, say, oh, you were the nicest guy. And I got people said, you went bankrupt because you were too nice. And maybe if that's the fault, I'll wear that like a badge of courage, honor, because I'd rather be downplayed for being too nice than for being what I was before.
Right. What was that thing you said on the phone last night about being a good man? Well, you catch me on.
When people say you're a good man, and I say, well, you caught me on a good day. I am on Mondays and Wednesdays, and you've just caught me on a Wednesday. So I'm a good man on a Wednesday. Don't see me on a Tuesday and a Thursday. But I try very hard to check myself. And these last couple of years, and this walk taught me that, I guess the message, and it's in the book again, the biggest thing I learned is it is impossible for us to be everything to everyone. We spend so much time trying to please everyone that we don't please anybody at all. And we fall down because your head will be
spread ourselves thin.
You spread yourself too thin, and you let others down, and you wear yourself out. And it is impossible to be everything to everyone. But what I learned out there on that walk from the people who picked up the phone and called me when I was in my darkest moments, or from the people who texted me at the end of the day. And sometimes people like our good friend Roger Caesar, who would pick up the phone and say, hey, buddy, and he would hear it in my voice that I was down, and he would just talk to me for hours, even though he was driving a rig around town trying to make his deliveries. He kept that earpiece in, and he kept me on the other end. He kept talking to me so I could walk through whatever I was going through. people like that, they can at every given moment be everything to someone.
Yeah.
You never know the battle that people are fighting, and your presence in their life at that moment means everything. So take the time to talk to them. If you think of somebody during the day, newsflash, whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in karma, whether you believe in the universe,
Yeah.
something sent you a message and put that person's name in your head. Like you thought about calling me yesterday because you were doing nothing and you thought, hey, I wonder if Neil wants to be on my show again. And I just happened to be thinking about you because the book came in the other day and I said, I should tell Candace because you were such a big part of this book. And we're
Oh,
both thinking of each other, and suddenly the phone rings. And it happened to be a moment where my wife was driving the car instead of me, and I took the phone call. And here we are today. And that just happened last night.
I love that. I totally believe in karma, and every single thing happens for a
For a
reason.
reason.
And whether, well, I always say that because that's my belief, but whether or not we're supposed to know the reason, is beyond me. But I think it's part of our purpose. If you want to get all
Oh, yeah.
philosophical or whatever.
But and I learned that out there because I would meet people that strangers, absolute strangers. And we would talk and they would share stories of people in their life who died by suicide, or somebody in their life who was struggling with everybody had a connection to mental health. And it was incredible. And on that walk, we had 2 interventions. I had an international suicide intervention where a relative of mine who I'd never met reached out to me, and I realized that he was suicidal, and I managed to connect with somebody else over there who went to him and who saved his life that day. And I said to my son, there you go. We took action and we saved a life today. I can stop now. I can stop walking right now. And this walk is a success because it started a conversation, and somebody across the ocean felt the need to reach out and say goodbye. And that's what he was doing. He was saying goodbye that day. We picked up on it, and we got him help. And we talk about karma, and we talk about
Yeah.
God, and we talk about the universe. We talk about all these connections and what you believe in. And it doesn't matter. You and I talked on the cell phone yesterday, and we got not disconnected, but the conversation got fragmented sometimes because I was here in Fergus and you're in Sudbury. And even in my living room, sometimes the cell coverage isn't the greatest. Well, when this young man called from Scotland, I was in the middle, I was out near Sharbet Lake in the middle of the bush.
Okay.
And I got cell coverage, clear as a bell, to talk to this kid. Not only did I get cell coverage to talk to him and to calm him and to try to intervene, when he finally said goodbye and we hung up, and I didn't trust that he was truthful in the fact that he wasn't going to commit suicide, and I needed to find another family member, somehow in the middle of the woods, I got another connection strong enough to be able to make a messenger call to a relative in Scotland to go and get him. And those 2 things, you cannot tell me, happened by a coincidence.
No.
So there's something else going on here. And I'm so grateful that that happened, because that's a life saved. And there was another lady that I met out there that was escaping a relationship, and she was exhausted and happened to be in the woods, and I stumbled across her. And I've told you before, I helped a young lady in a speech contest who shared her story about surviving spousal abuse.
Yeah.
And it was an honor to help her, but I didn't realize how much she taught me. And I used those lessons that she shared on how to help this young lady. And one of the things that I learned was that she's not looking for a hero. She doesn't need some other guy to scoop in and pick her up and carry her to safety.
No.
What she needs is to learn that the decision she made was correct, and that she's worthy of that decision, and she made that decision, and she's right, and she needs to carry on her journey to survival. It's all a process of taking steps for yourself.
And it takes lady balls to do that.
Oh, you know what? And in this, and yeah, absolutely. In this day and age, in COVID, so many people are locked in with their abuser. We all talk about you're not being locked in your house, you're safe at home. Well, for some people, home isn't safe. And for this woman, home wasn't safe. And when I met her out there, she was terrified. She was terrified of me. She was lost. She was cold. She was hungry. And I, fortunately, I mean, talk about that. Think about that for a minute. She ran. She was on the Trans-Canada Trail. And I'm not going to tell you where, because listen, 6
Right.
degrees of separation. Somebody hears this and they say, hey, buddy, I listened to this podcast of this guy. It might have been your wife who took off, like you should listen to it. Maybe we can find out where she is. No, I don't need that 6 degrees of separation. So
Right.
don't share a name. And I'm not sharing where in the Trans-Canada Trail this happened. But she's out there. And some guy who's walking to raise awareness for mental health and suicide, who's walking 30 to 40 kilometers a day, carrying a backpack with water and food, crosses your path. Is that serendipity? I don't know. There's something at play
I
here.
love it. So if people want to get in touch with Neil Dunsmore, how do they find you? And where can we find the book?
Okay,
You
so
know-
you can reach out to Neil Dunsmore at neildunsmore.com.
Okay.
And that's my email address. neildunsmore.com is my personal speaking and conflict website. You can contact me through there. There's a webpage which will be up probably by the time you air this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Because my son is working diligently to help his old man who doesn't understand the technology.
Oh, that's awesome.
That website will be called Reflections in the Ripple.
Okay.
And there will be pictures from the walk there, because you are a published author and you know how much it costs to publish pictures in a book, right? And it made the book too expensive, so people wouldn't buy it.
Okay.
So on that website, reflectionsintheripple.com, you will see the pictures and videos of the walk. Me actually out there, I did take the time, and they're not great pictures, folks. They were done on my camera, my cell phone.
Yeah.
And that's what I had. I was out there to walk and finish 30 to 40 kilometers a day. I wasn't out there to take pictures, but I did. So they're up there, as well as mental health resources. So from the Canadian Mental Health Association. So you can find links to their resources, so you can get people the help that they need. So those are the ways that you can reach out to me.
That's wonderful. I am so excited to get one of the first reads. We will stay in touch, because Neil,
Always.
I'm so grateful you're a big part of my life, even though I'm no longer a Toastmaster member. Friends are for life, right?
Absolutely. And I said to you the other day, and I'll say to you again here on the air for you, I bless the day that you and our paths crossed, because I met a wonderful young lady who has lived through a horrific experience. And instead of sitting back and feeling woe is me, you've said, I can help other people with this. You are a survivor.
And
Changed by the Rain was one of the most emotional books I've ever read. I simply loved it. And if you people haven't bought it, buy the book Changed by the Rain as quickly as you can. It is a great read, and it is the story of an angel that walks among us.
oh, you are so sweet. You, sir, have empathy, because I know that you're also a survivor, and your choice from coming back from that is to help other people. And I think that's what brings us together, and that's why we can empathize with each other. And, it has created a connection and a conversation, and you are helping save lives, Neil. Thank you so much for the work you do in your community. We are out of time, but Reflections in the Ripple will be available as soon as possible, and I'll help you promote the heck out of it, Neil.
Thank you. It's also up on Amazon now, so people can go on there and buy it too.
Okay, awesome. Buy 2 copies just to help them out. Amazon and the
Amazon takes most of the money.
exactly.
We know that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Neil Dunsmore, everybody. If we could all have 1/10 of the bravery, courage, and connection as this special human, the world would be such a better place. So thank you, Neil.
Thank you, and God bless you for what you're doing. If you're out there and you're struggling, please reach out, ask for help. Your happiness is worth fighting for.
Yes, thank you so much.